We got Miss Juanita Watson here, and she is going to introduce our reparations panel for today's event. Thank you very much. Give a round of applause for Miss Juanita Watson. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, my name is Nita Watson. I am on the board of LEAP, and we're just so excited that you are here today. Today, I want you to just put your hands together for this fantastic panel this afternoon. We're going to welcome you right now to Let's Talk About Reparations, the Reparations panel, where we will dive into the meaning of Juneteenth and the current status of reparations in California. The Lineage, Equity, and Advancement Project was formed in 2019 as a result of a group of like-minded local residents that were following the resurgent national reparations movement, decided to collaborate to amplify the missing voices of Black American descendants of U.S. chattel slavery who were demanding reparatory justice. LEAP is dedicated to achieving the rights and addressing the needs of the descendants of U.S. chattel slavery, referred to as American freedmen after emancipation, and working to create change through community organizing, public education, and policy advocacy. Reverend Hosel Francis II. Hosel is a founder and board member of LEAP and serves as a children's, youth, and young adult minister at St. Stephen Missionary Baptist Church, where he works with the senior pastor as well as various other leaders and members of the church to facilitate the children's, youth, and young adult ministry and foster parent engagement for the growth and validity of the local church and surrounding community. Mr. Hosel Francis. Commissioner Raphael H. Plunkett. Raphael was raised in Chicago, calling California home for the past 28 years, and she is a 38-year volunteer in literacy, domestically and internationally. She graduated cum laude from University of Laverne and is a recent Law Pi graduate. She is a board member of LEAP, has been working on behalf of the California Reparations Task Force process for the past several years. Raphael is a traffic and transportation commissioner and member of CJEC, NAASD, and board member of NAASD. She is the president of LAGE, Los Angeles Green Energy, and a traveler visiting 35 states and 33 countries. Ms. Raphael. Dr. Crinadel Truth Bay is a U.S. policy analyst focusing on civic engagement and urban planning and restitution. She received an MFA in 2001 in therapy arts and received a doctorate in 2009 for neuro-linguistic programming. The sudden death of her son, Kingdom James, from violence in New York, Brooklyn, New York, eventually led to the creation of a nonprofit called the Kingdom Warriors Foundation in 2013 in Los Angeles. KWF mission is to create careers for the underserved, focusing on reparations. Dr. Truth Bay. Chad Brown. Chad is a native of Jackson, Mississippi, now residing in Los Angeles, California. He's an alumni of Tougaloo College in Mississippi and began his professional career in financial services working the former three-term mayor of Atlanta, Maynard Jackson. Chad is a reparations activist, national spokesperson for the Lineage, Equity, and Advancement Project, LEAP in Los Angeles, and a member of the Coalition for a Just and Equitable California, CJEC. a statewide coalition dedicated to the mission of reparative justice for African American descendants of persons enslaved in the U.S. residing in California. Mr. Chad Brown. Attorney Camila V. Moore. Camila Moore is a repertory justice scholar and an attorney with a specialization in entertainment and intellectual property transactions. She earned a Juris Doctor from the Columbia Law School in New York City, a Master of Laws degree in International Criminal Law from the University of Amsterdam, and a bachelor's degree from the University of California at Los Angeles, UCLA. Camila Moore was appointed to the Reparations Task Force by Speaker of the Assembly, Anthony Rendon, where she served as chair for 2 years. Attorney Camila V. Moore. Last but not least, Assemblyman Isaac G. Bryan represents California's 55th Assembly District. In the Assembly, Isaac serves as the chair of the Committee on Natural Resources, as well as chair of the Assembly's first Select Committee on Poverty and Economic Inclusion. In 2022, he was elected treasurer of the California Legislative Black Caucus. Isaac is a community organizer, political expert, and a published academic. Prior to his election to the Assembly, Isaac led a ballot measure that brought forth millions of dollars a year to address racial injustice and strengthen communities in Los Angeles. Assembly Isaac G. Bryan. Come on, y'all, put your hands together for all these amazing panelists. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you all for coming out. Again, my name is Jose Francis. I'm the Children, Youth, and Young Adult Minister at St. Stephen Baptist Church in La Puente, California, where I invite all of you to come visit next Sunday. I know y'all got something to do today, but I am inviting you out. You can go on YouTube and catch our services from today. That's my preacher plug. Moving right along, we're here to recognize Juneteenth and reparations. So, of course, we got this esteemed panel right here. Let's give them another round of applause. Thank you all for coming out, sharing your time, your expertise with us. Without further delay, we'll get rolling. So, recognizing Juneteenth, what can we as Black Americans teach our families about the importance and meaning of Juneteenth? We'll start with Chad Brown. Would you mind addressing us on that topic, sir?
Thank you, Brother Hosel. Can you get a round of applause for Brother Hosel, Pastor Hosel, Raphael Plunkett? Because this movement is very much about people and the work that people are doing behind the scenes. And these are two of the hardest workers I've ever come across. So I just had to give him some flowers there. But Juneteenth, we know, is Freedom Day. It's about emancipation, right? I first learned about Juneteenth in Houston, Texas in the early 90s when I was in high school. If you're good at math, you can figure out how old I am. And I didn't really understand the holiday. I didn't understand the meaning. I didn't understand the significance. I just knew that Black folks in Houston were having a good time. They were drinking red soda. They were having red velvet cake, and there was a party going on. It wasn't until I got older and really got involved in social justice activism that I really started to look into Juneteenth and understand the meaning and the significance. The very first thing to understand is this is our holiday. This is a commemoration of us, right? This is a commemoration of our unique experience in America. That's why the flag is red, white, and blue. I had the opportunity to talk to Ben Hay, who designed this flag. He put intent behind the colors of red, white, and blue. So the very first thing we need to know about Juneteenth is we need to see red, white, and blue everywhere, celebrating our Americanness. The second thing to understand about Juneteenth is we're talking about emancipation. I think everybody up here agrees, and I know a lot of you agree, you can't talk about emancipation without talking about reparations. The two are tied, inextricably tied together. So when you celebrate and commemorate Juneteenth and the freedom and the emancipation of our ancestors, also put in action for the due reparations that this country continues to try to avoid, but we're gonna make them pay. Put in action. Make it a day of action. Just like MLK Day is a day of action, Juneteenth is a day of action. And find those groups and those causes to support in the continuing pursuit of justice for our people. So I'll stop.
That's great. And I'll also add, when I reflect on my time at on the task force, I learned that the image of this country is very fragile and it's held up by myths. And it's the work of folks who are believe in reparations, believe in liberation, to dispel these myths that allow white supremacy to persist. So how is that connected to Juneteenth? Well, the myth around Juneteenth is that Juneteenth, June 19th, 1865, is the day that slaves in Texas learned that they were free. And that's actually not true. Because remember, the Emancipation Proclamation, which was signed by Abraham Lincoln, was signed in 1863, over 2 years before, Union General Gordon Granger went to Texas to enforce the Emancipation Proclamation. And so slaves in Texas knew that they were free in 1865. It was just that slave owners in Texas wanted to keep their property for a little while longer. And they wanted to keep their slaves just for a little while longer. And so that's when you had, like I said, Union General Gordon Granger going into Texas to enforce, the Emancipation Proclamation. So in whole, to be quite honest, from a historical perspective, states across the South had different emancipation dates. So when we tie that to reparations, right, that's the inconsistency of the federal government, enforcing the Emancipation Proclamation at different dates. It's illustrative of, the inconsistencies, the broken promises that the federal government, has made to African Americans, those who are descendants of slaves, starting with the broken promise of Reconstruction to this very single day, right? Till this very single day, we see the federal government being inconsistent in ensuring that Black Americans have equal protection under the law. And that's why, reparations is so important. So I really want folks to take away from, this holiday of Juneteenth, right? Our people knew that we were free, right? We have to take away from this holiday a commitment to hold our federal government and our governments accountable to ensuring equal protection under the law for our group.
Thank you for that response, and thank you everyone for joining us here today. I'm Raphael, and I'm so honored to be here. I'd like to pose this next question to Truth Bay, please. Could you please explain to us what your thoughts are on how do we honor our elders and our ancestors in recognizing Juneteenth?
Absolutely, good question. So the way that we can honor our ancestors is through knowledge, is through education. If we cannot pass down what our ancestors did to lay down the blueprint of where we are today, then we're not honoring them. So this is why it's very important that we tell our children reparations, what it is, why we deserve it, what are the things in history that caused us to receive today, and why there is a delay in it. So again, continuing to tell the stories, and they did it great, for us to know what is going on in our past is to continually to speak about it to our children and our children's children. That's the best way to honor our ancestors for Juneteenth.
And building on that, I'll pose this to Assembly Member Brian. How can we help non-descendants learn from Juneteenth celebrations? I know in your work you deal with different communities, different groups of people. And so how would you suggest is a good way to go about informing other groups outside of our people about the necessity and the importance of Juneteenth as well as reparations?
Check. So that's a damn good question, because we didn't enslave ourselves, right? We didn't gain our freedom solely by ourselves, and we're not going to get the reparations we deserve solely by ourselves. But we definitely deserve them, and we've got to tell that story to everybody out there. The true meaning of Juneteenth. Juneteenth is a promise denied, promise delayed. If you think about it now, the only reason we're celebrating this at a federal and state level is because George Floyd died. That was our gift for launching the largest movement in the streets since the civil rights. Was a holiday we should have had this whole damn time.
That's right.
We've got to do that education work, and it's got to happen right here in Los Angeles, quite frankly, because if we can't convince the diverse communities across LA that reparations are due, reparations are late, and reparations are important, it is going to be much harder to go up to Kern County, to Bakersfield, to other places where the Klan is still organizing, Huntington Beach, Orange County, etc. We've got to do that work, and we've got to do it through education. We've got to do it through community building. We've got to do it through coalition building. And honestly, it's what I'm trying to do. Because even though I live right down the street, and in my mind, this is the district right here, my district actually goes all the way to Pico Robertson. Right? Both sides of Wilshire, Century City, Cheviot Hills, Beverly Woods, Culver City, right? It's not just us that I represent. And so I carry that responsibility personally of making sure that education is known and moving folks in the same direction. But we've all got to put in that work. We've got to claim what's due, we've got to claim what's ours, but we've got to do the righteous education work to get others fighting with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Assemblyman Ryan, if you would please keep the mic just for you. And thank you. And I'm going to switch gears briefly. At that recent Assembly Judiciary hearing on June 11th on Senate Bill 1331, that's the bill to establish a fund for reparations in California for those eligible. And we heard pushback from the reparations based on misinformation and willful untruths from a particular Assembly member regarding the potential costs of reparations. She stated that the cost would be $800 million. Mr. Chris Lodgson of CJEC, the Coalition for a Just and Equitable California, educated this dissenter, and he told her that the task force economists never gave $800 billion as how much reparations was cost, but that's the amount of wealth that was stolen and taken from descendants. Could you please speak more to this misinformation and any other misinformation that you'd like to inform us properly on?
No, absolutely. So the Judiciary Committee is where a lot of the major reparations bills are going through. Historically, the Judiciary Committee hasn't had black members. In fact, this might be the first time in recent history there are two of us on there. Myself and Assemblymember Tina McKinnon. And we're pushing back against all the nonsense. All of y'all who came in, y'all know we're pushing back against all the nonsense. I will also tell you that the Republicans, they boycotted the last Judiciary hearing. They didn't even come. And then they came to this one just to talk shit on reparations, just to spread misinformation, just to remind black folks exactly who they are, right? They showed their ass and we called them out on it. They're trying to scare folks. The state budget is about $300 billion on a good year. So they want to put out that that black folks are calling for $800 billion right now. We can't fund schools, we can't fund anything else. That's what they're trying to say. The reality is the report said very clearly, the task force said very clearly, that's how much money was stolen from black folks. Wow. Right? And if you adjust it for its present day value, it's even greater. And if you recognize that you can't actually quantify lives lost, you can't actually quantify some of these harms, the racialized terror, the burning of homes and push out of whole communities, Section 14, Bruce's Beach, Allensworth, and beyond, the fact that you can't actually come up with that number means that, in my mind, the state actually owes us more than that. Right. But the way we get what we're doing, the way we push back against this information is to be smart, deliberate, and strategic. And that's what setting up the fund is to do. We didn't call for $800 billion in this bill. We wanted to. What we called for was the establishment of a fund. Start with a base and build from there. But this work is going to take many, many years. But we've got to move with the urgency because we're already 400 years behind.
All right.
Thank you for that answer. I guess he put it all out there, didn't he? He let us know what's going on. And this is for Dr. Truth.
Can't hear you.
Senate Bills 1050, 1331, and 1403, all authored by Senator Stephen Bradford. Shout out to Senator Bradford. All three of these bills have passed the Senate and are just 2 steps, only 2, from reaching the governor's desk. So, Dr. Truth Bay, in your opinion, can you share with us what the next course of action is for grassroots organizers and supporters of these people?
Oh, well, on June 11th, first of all, that room was not filled. It should have been filled to the brim. Time and outreach and engagement, we need to be in these spaces. And one of the things, I was there at this judicial hearing, it was so brilliant, where Kate Sanchez was trying to show her face. But Reginald Jones Sawyer, did I say Reginald Jones Sawyer? God bless him too. But Stephen Bradford and Chris and Assemblymember Isaac Bryan gave a perfect response. If we're not in these spaces to tell them in their face who we are, they're going to keep doing a drive-by on us. So the state capitol, we have to be present in these buildings. We've got to have our young people in these buildings. It's not an excuse anymore for us to say, I don't know politics, or I'm not interested in politics. Politics is what determines how we live, family. And so what we know about these bills, Senate Bill 1050, 1403, and 1331, that it's clear that they have no problem giving us land in eminent domain, but they have a problem and they're chucking and jiving and get uncomfortable when it comes to monetary value. This is a debt that is owed to us. It is a blood debt. So however we present it, the next step is to mobilize the people for the next assembly hearing. Make sure that you are there. If you're not able to be there in person in Sacramento, then make sure you follow the recording, the virtual meetings of it. Read it, watch it, go over it with your children. Tell them what is going on, because we cannot be in ignorance anymore. Right now, reparations needs to be on the tongues and mouths of all of our children. And nothing else until it is drilled what, who, when, and why. And then they will carry the torch in their generation to see it through. So let's mobilize and outreach and engagement to our people. Power to the people.
Thank you. Since it's a Sunday, I'll say amen to that.
Amen.
And Chad Brown, is there a little bit more you can add to that, elaborate on?
I mean, she said it so perfectly. The only thing I'll say is something that Chris says all the time. We are closer to reparations than we've ever been in the history of this country. We as a people, we need to understand it. We're not just up here talking about this. As you heard Isaac Bryan says, Assemblymember Isaac Bryan, and we appreciate you, brother, for your comments in that judiciary. We have 3 bills and they're 2 steps away from being in law. One will create the California American Freedmen Affairs Agency. That's an institution that we need to pay us the reparations. The Japanese had the Office of Redress Administration. Native Americans had the Bureau of Indian Affairs. We need an agency of our own. That's 1403. 1331, as you had the assembly member said, creates the funding space in the Treasury for us to get the money. And then you have 1050 that scales up to Bruce's Beach and the return of all that land that we know was stolen from us. But I think as a people, we just need to understand how close we are and how urgent it is. When Dr. Bay says, talk to your kids, I talk to mine every day. They're tired of me talking to them about reparations at this point, right? They're like, we know, Dad, we know. Especially on Father's Day, I'm going to double down, right? So that's what we need to have in our communities. It needs to be in all of our mouths and all our lips, and we need to be doing it with urgency because we are just that close.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Shannon. And yes, please give that mic to Chair Moore. Chair Moore, first I'd like to say how much we honor you for being our champion and being as fierce as you are in this space. After enduring what you have and succeeding the way that you have, what can you say to average, everyday folks like us here, what we can be doing to support reparations?
Chad and Dr. Trufe, everyone else said it the best. Just follow organizations like LEAP, follow trusted elected officials like Assemblymember Isaac Bryan, the CLBC. I know you all are having a tour across the state, educating folks about the next steps in terms of reparations. Just continue to keep it in conversations in your family, in your workplaces, anywhere and everywhere. Just continue to spread the word about what the great work that the California Reparations Task Force has done and what grassroots organizations are doing on this issue as well.
Thank you so much. And as we wrap it up with our questions, Chad, could you please tell our audience about the calls to action that we put out on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. So LEAP is a coalition partner with the Coalition for a Just and Equitable California. We've been engaged in this fight since 2019 or so, working with then in the Assembly, Dr. Shirley Weber, now Secretary of State, to help develop AB 3121, and we've been engaged in this process since. we always are telling the community what we need to focus on, which assembly members and senators we need to focus on. We need to focus on this governor. And so we're going to be putting out calls to action on all social media. Use Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We'll be in these communities. We'll be in our communities talking about this and raising awareness. But we need you. The thing to recognize is I'm just up here with a microphone because I spoke up. We need everybody to speak up. This is a movement of all of us. This isn't a movement of the 6 people on this stage. This is a movement of all of us, and everybody has a role to play. So plug in with organizations that are at the grassroots, that are doing the work. Get aware, keep yourself in the know, and pass it along to everybody you know.
I knew you was the one the Lord chose. This question is for Attorney Moore, and I'm just thinking, recently there was a radio program that's on, and the host was asking about some of the different myths and misconceptions that have been brought up to kind of like deter people from this certain redress. And so, what do you have to say to the fact, or to the myth? I'm gonna put it out there for what it is. The myth that California was not a slave state. Can you share the Reparations Task Force findings on that lie?
Absolutely. So the Reparations Task Force, we consulted with expert witnesses like Professor Stacy Smith from Oregon State University, right? Academics who have dedicated their entire academic careers to actually studying the role that California has had in perpetuating the institution of slavery. And through her work, for instance, we learned that yes, California was a slave state, right? There were slave colonies here, right? Biddy Mason is a prominent case where, you know, Mormons brought their slaves to San Bernardino to be enslaved. Also, California enacted a fugitive slave law in 1852. So that meant California was not a sanctuary state, right? If you so happen to be, you know, enslaved person to try to run away to California for freedom, right? You could actually be deported to be re-enslaved either back in the South or in some instances enslaved in the state of California. We learned that there were at most 2,000, maybe even more, enslaved black people in the state of California that a lot of Southern slave owners brought to California during the gold rush. And so, again, it's important to dispel these myths, right, that California was a slave state, because we see how that has present day effects in us getting denied the rights that we are owed in California today, right? California is known to be a progressive bastion, right? And that's undergirded by these myths that we have to dispel if we actually want to achieve true liberation.
Thank you. Assemblyman Bryan, may I ask you to give us a little bit of your thoughts on hearing people say, not my tax dollars?
I would say to those folks, you should be glad it's just your tax dollars. Because we lost our lives, we lost our history, we lost our language, we lost our identities, we had them stolen from us. We paid a tremendous price to build this country, to build this state. And the redress is overdue. The repair is late. Reminds me of what Brother Malcolm once said. Put a knife 12 inches in my back, pull it out 6 inches, that's not justice. You pull it out all the way, that's still not justice. Justice is repairing the harm that it caused. And the only way we know how to do that publicly is with public investment. Black folks have contributed, descendants of slaves in this country have contributed an immeasurable amount. We've calculated it in California at $800 billion, but it's immeasurable. And we have to do the work to repair that. So my answer to them would be that you're lucky it's just your tax dollars.
Can I add something to that? Raise your hand if you pay taxes right now. Now raise your hand if you get to tell the government where to spend your taxes. Nobody gets to say a la carte, I want my tax dollars to go here. It's only when we're talking about justice for black folks that they say not my tax dollar. They are spending money right now on things that I don't want my tax dollars going to. But guess what? They're doing it anyway. Don't let anybody tell you, not my tax dollars. Tell them, please continue to pay your taxes and the government will distribute it rightly to us.
Okay, well, I ain't got no problem with that. You know, spend my tax dollars right. We gonna spend them. Let's spend them right. But again, to Assembly Member Brian, I mean, I heard a couple of phrases that were used between you and Attorney Moore. One of them was sanctuary state, and the other was identity theft. And in a world such as the one we live in now, those are two major issues, at least on the criminal level or the societal level. And so, for those who are saying, California is a sanctuary for some, but not for us, right? How do we make it a sanctuary for us? Like, how do we do that the legal way and throughout the legislature besides what's being done now, if there's anything else?
I would say that the task force report is incredibly comprehensive. Yes, we need our check. Yes, that is past due and overdue. But the work that they spent 2 years working on was to explain the entire conditions of our communities, how we got here and what's working against us actively at this moment. The displacement, the gentrification, the freeway splitting, the redlining, mass incarceration, the investments in the criminal legal system. Right? We spend more of our tax dollars policing ourselves than anything else. And they're not even policing ourselves, right? They're killing us unjustly. They're in our schools. I see you, UTLA. Right? So what I would say that we need to do is we need to take this reparations conversation and make sure that we're always having it holistic. We can't forget about the bottom line. We cannot forget about the financial redress. We can't throw away the policy changes too, though, just because a check sounds better. We can do both. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can survive, we can live, we can thrive, we can fight for all that's just and right in our communities. And I think that's what we have to do. That's what our elected officials should do. That's what our community leaders should do. And if you see anybody holding any less than that, you need to get somebody else in there.
Okay, well, again, that's our time. So we'll have Miss Nita come back. But I do again thank you all for sharing this stage with us, allowing me to share with y'all. And I think I can say on behalf of Raphael and everyone else, it's been a pleasure to be here with you. And so we'll turn it over to Miss Nita Watson. Thank you all for your time.
Come on, y'all, put your hands together for these amazing panelists. Assembly Member Isaac Bryan, our beloved Shiro, Attorney Camila B. Moore, our national spokesman. This is who represents us all over the world, Mr. Chad Brown. Dr. Truth Bay, my sister, God bless you. And the illustrious Miss Raphael, Raphael Bucket. And last but certainly not least, the great minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ, one of my favorite preachers, Reverend Hosea Francis II. Yes, Lori. Okay, well, you can follow each of these panelists on their social media pages. I call their names. They're not hard to find because they're on the front line. When you're not on the front line, we got to look for you. And so we can sign up for the mailing list at leapofficial.org and cjectofficial.org. And let's celebrate this Juneteenth the right way. All right? Our colors are red, white, and what? Our traditions are watermelon. Now these are cultural cuisine things that happened in Galveston when we began to picnic and gather and family reunion. Watermelon, red sausage on the grill, ribs, red velvet cake. We have an official flower. Did you know we have an official flower? The hibiscus. We have an official drink, red hibiscus tea. All of this holiday is very intentional on the culture that we have in Galveston and Houston, Texas. And so today we thank you for coming out and celebrating this great holiday with us.
Can I add one more note, Ms. Nita? This is the advocate in me. We are in an election year.
Yes.
Right? If you're black, if you're Black American, if you're a descendant of persons that were enslaved right here in this country, when somebody comes campaigning to you asking what you're going to do with your vote, your response should be, what are you going to do about reparations? It's very simple. It's very simple. Now I see Cornell West back there, but tell Cornell we need a detailed plan. Tell him we need a detailed plan. All right? First 100 days. Tell him that's what we want to hear. First 100 days, what he's going to do for reparations.
Yeah.
But as a community, let's stop giving our votes away. Let's start putting our agenda on the ballot and then having something that we can show up for to vote for.
Absolutely. Thank you all. God bless you.